You're listening to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast, the only podcast for active, athletic, and adventurous women and those who aspire to be. We've got your back as you navigate the ups and the downs of motherhood, midlife, and menopause. I'm your host, Oleson, here to remind you that female isn't fragile. I'm a strength, conditioning, and nutrition coach who's trained hundreds of women to achieve their goals to get fit, lift heavy, go the distance, and feel like a badass in every area of their lives. Each week, you'll hear from me and some of our awesome guests as we educate and empower you during each stage of your fitness journey, whether you're already crushing it, fighting to get back out there, or starting from day one. So friends, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am here today with Dr. Melissa Oleson, who is a doctor of physical therapy and a yoga instructor who specializes in core and pelvic floor. And her unique blend of yoga and physical therapy helps people build a solid foundation by learning how to move for more optimal performance. And what I love about this is that her approach isn't just deal with the pain and the leaks or Kegel your way through life. She is spreading pelvic health knowledge through her YouTube channel, programs, challenges, working with clients virtually so they don't have to stop doing the things that they love. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so funny story. I met you in 2018 in Portland, Oregon at a yoga medicine training on myofascial release. We were there all the way across the other side of the US and realizing that we actually live less than a mile from each other, which is so wild.
It was crazy. I remember when you said, I'm like, no way, we're outside of you, dude. Fuck.
And it's not like we live in a really big town, just a small suburb of Washington, D.C. So it was very strange to be all the way across the country and meeting somebody brand new who was also from there. But correct me if I'm wrong. When we met, you were still in the orthopedic physical therapy world. So you were dealing with hips and knees and feet and all of that. But somewhere along the line, around that time period, you began to really pivot toward a specialization of pelvic floor physical therapy. So can you tell me a little bit about what led you in that direction?
Absolutely. Yes. So when we met, I definitely was still working for someone else in the clinic, seeing multiple patients a day and hips, knees, backs, you name it, sports medicine. And I kept seeing something was missing with all of my clients. They'd get better, but not completely 100%. And especially when we're talking about pelvic health, no one likes to talk about it. I still have to pull it out of people. I mean, sometimes still don't want to talk about it. I myself had struggled in my 20s with hip pain for years, and I'm a physical therapist. I couldn't figure out what was going on. The hip pain then led to leaks, especially when I was doing more explosive movements like sprinting or jumping rope. And I was 20. What on earth? I did not have children. What is going on? This isn't supposed to happen. And when I was trained in school, squeezing, doing Kegels wasn't working. So I stumbled across a continuing education class that kind of blended orthopedic and pelvic health. And it was a game changer for me. Hip pain was gone. I learned such amazing techniques and strategies. And then from there, just kept diving down, learning more about pelvic health and what helped me, then working with my clients and helping them. And it's what got them that like last little bit over the hump so that they didn't have to stop the things they were doing or just deal with it like we're told to.
Yeah, and I run into that as a coach. It's kind of like hush hush, right? Or they'll give me a BMI disclaimer. And I'm like, okay, this is not too much information. So what I want to dig into today is we have heard these symptoms of pelvic floor issues, and some of them are really widely known. People are starting to talk about them, and then there are some lesser known. So let's start with the most common or the ones that most people are aware of. What are the signs of pelvic floor dysfunction?
Yeah, so typically what you've heard or think of, or maybe even talking about with some of your friends, is like leaks, whether you're sneezing, coughing, laughing, exercising, those bladder leaks. Then there's that urgency of like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom and you got to go right now. Or you've just gone to the bathroom and 5 minutes later, oh my gosh, I've got to go again. Are you kidding me? So those are the common ones that we would typically think of having some type of issue with, or going to the bathroom or having leaks working out. And pelvic pain is also another big area. But again, that's one people tend not to talk about as much, like very shameful about the pelvic.
Yeah. So what are some of those lesser known signs that you're seeing that help you to connect the dots of this might be a pelvic floor issue?
Yes. If you're struggling with low back pain and you've had back pain for years and you've done all the stretches and you've done the strengthening and that typical like transverse abdominal strengthening, but it's not getting better, the pelvic floor is linked back to our low back. For me, the hips were huge connection to my pelvic floor. Once I started addressing the issues with my pelvic floor, no more hip pain. But I was trained to think in school, all right, I've got a weak pelvic floor, I'm leaking. So I'm going to do my Kegels and squeezing and that increasing the pressure. And it was just making my symptoms worse. So coming back to any nagging, lingering hip pain that's not going away, constipation. Constipation is a huge issue and it's related to the pelvic floor. And learning a couple of strategies and tips can be so helpful with that. Uh, Other ones would be like foot pain. Plantar fasciitis, that like big lump term you get put into, and you're like, I'm rolling on that water bottle, I'm strengthening my foot, I'm working on them, like what's going on? But if you tie it further up the chain, because the movement at the feet is going to impact the movement that's happening at the knees, the hips, and the pelvis, addressing the pelvic floor can be really helpful for the feet as well. Stress, if you're super stressed or you're not sleeping well, looking at your pelvic floor. So those are some ones that a lot of clients that come to me might not necessarily be thinking, I've got this hip pain that's been going on for years, but I've never thought about my pelvic floor as potentially being a contributor factor to my hip pain. So just taking a broader picture look at everything.
Yeah, that's really interesting because traditional therapies, like you said, for your patients and for yourself, they get you so far. But the orthopedic lens is really like you have back pain, work on your back or work on the core, or you have hip pain, work on your hip. And if that's not working for you over a period of time, I hear women say, I saw the physical therapist about my hip and it goes away, but then it always comes back. And they just told me this is something that I have to deal with. And I just find it so, yeah, I mean, like fuming, like the cartoons of like those, there's those moments where I'm like, okay, let's look at something else that might be related. And you're right. I don't think a lot of people really recognize pelvic floor dysfunction as being connected to some of these things. But what would you say to neck pain or upper back stiffness? Is there a connection there? It's Yeah.
I miss those ones. Absolutely. They're like jaw pain, like clenching your jaw at night because of our fascia and the way our tissues are connected. One of the fascial lines comes all the way up, connecting into your jaw to the back of your head. Maybe some headaches, tension in your back. If you sit a lot during the day or you're on your computers, we get a lot of tightness in that mid-back area, and that's going to inhibit how we're breathing, which we'll probably get into a little bit. Breathing is so important for our core and our pelvic floor. So it's just this full body system. Instead of pinpointing, all right, I've got a problem with my foot, I'm going to only focus on my foot. Take a look at the whole system. And then you also have to have lifestyle factors, what's going on outside of it, because our nervous system is also really important with our pelvic floor. So there's lots of ways you can impact the system instead of just squeezing, doing Kegels. I've been to see my physical therapist. It hasn't helped. Like I was in physical therapy when I was a physical therapist for my hip pain, and it wasn't helping. And it's frustrating that sometimes you have to go see 2, 3, 4 PTs, multiple doctors, until you find the team that works best for you. And my biggest takeaway with that is if you're frustrated and you feel like you've seen so many people, keep looking, because there are people out there who have the knowledge and want to help you and are going to tell you, no, you don't have to stop doing X, Y, and Z. Like, this is what we have to do to get you there.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up because I run into that a lot too. It is frustrating to navigate the medical system in that you have to see different specialists and perhaps many doctors. But I agree with you. I think finding the right team is absolutely critical. And if you're feeling not heard or like you've reached the limit of a certain professional's expertise or ability to help you, go searching for someone else. There's definitely a lot of people out there who are specializing in this field. We're starting to talk more and more about pelvic health, which is so important. So yeah, the team is absolutely critical, and just keep advocating for yourself along the way.
Keep pushing. You know your body best, so definitely keep pushing if something does not feel right.
Yeah. So this is a hush-hush subject that people have not been openly talking about. or are just starting to more openly talk about. And there's more information available now, but not all of it's good information, right? And one of the big ones I know you'll touch on is the Kegels piece. So what are these myths that we just need to let go of around the pelvic floor?
Yeah. All right. So since you mentioned it, Kegels, sure. For some people, yes, they are helpful. But I will tell you the majority of the clients that I work with and members in my community, they have not been helpful or they've even made their symptoms worse. So we've been so taught as a society. I leak. I have issues with going to the bathroom all the time. My pelvic floor is weak. Therefore, I need to strengthen and do more Kegels. But when our system is already tight and tense, when you're squeezing and doing more Kegels, that just adds to more tension to it. So Kegels might not be what you need to do. We've been talking about this whole body system, taking it from a different lens and maybe working from a different perspective to help with the pelvic floor can be very helpful. So Kegels are not the end all be all.
There's so much more to helping alleviate your symptoms than Kegels. So what other myths have you seen?
Yes. This was like I even thought it when I was first starting out before I learned about pelvic health, like, well, you have to have kids in order to have pelvic floor dysfunction. I was in my 20s. I did not have children and I was peeing my pants every time I was sprinting. I was like, what is happening? So you can still have pelvic floor issues without having children is another big myth.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. And I think that works both ways. So now there's this argument of after you've had children, you can expect these symptoms to be here. And that's not true. Because if women who did not have children are having these symptoms, then it's not having kids that causes the problem to the extent that we just say, okay, well, you've had kids, so you have to deal with it, right? What else do you see? What other myths?
Other common myths would be, well, I'm just getting older. This is part of the age game and I'm just going to leak. I have to wear aligners. It's going to happen. I am so impressed with the number of in late 60s, 70s, 80-year-olds that like have come and taken some of my programs. And they're like, Melissa, I never thought that I could learn new things at my age and I don't have to wear aligners anymore. I can go out for my morning walks. I don't have to worry about how far I am away from the bathroom. I'm not wearing my panty liners anymore. Like amazing. So age is just a number. When you learn the right skills and strategies, and we're not talking about hours worth of exercises. These are more things you can do throughout your day to have a really big impact. It makes the world of difference in your symptoms. So age is just a number. It is never, ever too late to work on your pelvic floor.
Hey, you. I wanted to press pause on this episode for a second to talk about your fitness goals. You know, those sweet dreams of being more active and feeling athletic and confident and doing epic, adventurous shit. Or maybe you just feel like you're getting older, because we're all getting older. And you, like me, never want to give up on carrying all the groceries into the house in one shot, or picking up that heavy Amazon box without worrying that you're going to throw your back out. I know you're busy. You're probably listening to this episode while multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm on to you. And the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting strong and fit is knowing how to use your workout time most effectively. Like exactly which exercises are worth your time, when to do them, and the number of sets and reps to get to your goals. You probably also tried other fitness apps and programs out there, only to feel like they weren't right for your needs. You want a program that has it all: strength, power, cardio, mobility, and recovery, all built right in without spending your whole life in the gym. And you want experienced coaches around to answer your questions, and a community at your back to help you stay motivated and inspired. Look, I've been coaching women for a long time now, and the truth is that you don't need another fad diet or complicated, time-consuming workout routine to support you as you age. You just need to train smarter with simple, progressive workouts and a plan that's designed for your body and your life, whether you're navigating motherhood, midlife, or menopause. And if this sounds like exactly what you've been missing, I invite you to join Stronger 365, a progressive strength, power, and conditioning training membership for women like you who are ready to stop winging it and take their training to the next level with more structure and support. And the best part? This program has 3 different options, so you can choose your own fitness adventure based on your goals, how much time you have to train, and what equipment you have, whether you've got access to a full gym or, like me, work out at home. And it's run by me, Allison Heilig, and my awesome team at Miles to Go Athletics. Head over to the show notes for all the details and to join our membership community. And as an FBG, your first 2 weeks are on me. And now, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, and you talked a little bit there about the ways that women have learned to live with this. They wear liners and things like that. And I remember being in the CrossFit gym when double unders were on the workout of the day. The women wanted to wear dark leggings that day because it was just this thing that was out in the open, and the male coaches in the room had no idea what to do with that. They just avoided it. There was no conversation around that. It's just everybody laughed. It was just a thing that we all have to deal with. And it was like, this is insane. This is insane. We're just got to wear black leggings that day or just buy a lifetime supply of panty liners for it. Yes, the age one. We've both shared this conversation and this belief in the past about the way that people throw around, I'm just old. I'm just not going to be able to do certain things anymore. My life is just going to be a different way because I'm old. And so much of that is just not true. And you see that with your
Absolutely.
patients as well, right?
Absolutely. It's just a number. Like my goal, I have grandparents that are in their 80s and they kick my butt, like kayaking, downhill skiing, hiking. I'm like, okay, guys, like I need a break to hang out. So that's like why I train and I work out and I see them and they're mobile and they don't use age as an excuse. My grandfather's always, Melissa, age is just a number. And it is. It really is. When you keep moving and use the right strategies, like your body is going to work for you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the way that women have been brushed off and told that their symptoms are normal, that their doctors maybe are not equipped to help them. And they're told they just have to deal with it or just stop doing the things that they enjoy. What would you say to those women? What have you seen in terms of your experience and what have you been able to help women with on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. The gaslighting is huge. And typically, with clients that I work with, they have been to see 3 or 4 different providers and told this is just something that you have to deal with. And they're like, I'm going to try one last time. So I would tell you if you're feeling frustrated, if you're hopeless, don't give up. And you know your body best. So if someone's telling you, oh no, this is normal, but it doesn't feel right, go search for the answers and find what works best for you. It can definitely be frustrating. I was there. I had hip pain and I had had injections, seen multiple doctors, physical therapy. I couldn't fix my hip. But when the like breaking point for me was when one doctor was like, you have to stop running at 20. Like, like in my 20s, and you're telling me I can't run anymore? Are you kidding me? And I was like, absolutely not. Did that once I found the training and I was like, oh my gosh, nobody taught me this. I was taught the complete opposite in school. All at once. And I noticed I was doing all of the things like sucking in your abs. We hear like, okay, you have to have really strong abs. Another myth, pull your abs in all the time. Well, I was doing this and it was just contributing to my problem. So it's outside of the box thinking. Like you want to find practitioners and your team who have that school of thought as our bodies are a whole and how we sleep, what's going on in our life, our nutrition, how we're exercising, how we're moving, all plays a role in what's going on with how you're feeling. It's not just like one thing. So keep searching.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of women who have had similar experiences, both in the pelvic floor dysfunction realm and back pain. And it is very frustrating. This can't be the answer.
Just
Stop
deal with it.
running. Stop running. This is no, I'm sorry. That's not going to work for me, right? And just having the confidence to continue to push is a really important thing, even in the face of all of that frustration. So you mentioned sucking in the abs, right? So what are some of the behaviors or the habits that you see in your patients that may be contributing to their symptoms that when they change these habits or behaviors, there's a symptom alleviation?
So sucking in the abs is definitely one, I think, as a society. It's starting to change, which is so awesome. But just like this idea of I have to be skinny, let me suck my abs in all day long. It's going to help keep really strong core to help protect my back. Leading into that fear based of like, oh, hold it tight too. That's a whole nother thing. But what that does, all the things I'm about to mention, it increases your interabdominal pressure. So these are all things that are going to disrupt how your core and your pelvic floor system like to work. So once I started just letting my stomach go, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a difference. Um, glutes. If you clench your glutes, I clench my glutes all the time. I was like, huh, I didn't realize I was doing that. No one had mentioned it or taught, like I hadn't learned about it.
Mhm.
They're just these little things that we're doing throughout the day are contributing to creating tension in this system that contributing to the pelvic floor dysfunctions. Other things, the breath. The breath is huge. And what you can start to do is if your symptoms come up, like, oh, I've got the urge, I've got to go, or I just leaked, or my hip pain's coming on, start to keep a little log as to what's going on with your body when this is happening. Maybe you are sucking in your abs. Maybe you're holding your breath. Maybe you breathe into your chest or you're a big belly breather. All of those things contribute. Your posture. We're so taught to like, and even if I just say posture, like I was like, everyone thinks stand up nice and tall, pull your shoulders down and back. But what that does, especially if you have pelvic floor issues, if you're constantly walking around like this, you're not able to use your diaphragm, your breathing muscle properly, and it disrupts how that whole system works. So there's so many little things. Your feet, like what you're wearing for shoes. Like for years working in the clinic, I had these shoes that would squish everything together. And there are so many connections between your fascia, your nerves, the movement at your feet, and your pelvic floor. So getting in some wide toe box shoes, toe spacers are some of the things I love that don't take tons of time. You have to wear shoes, so would start working on your pelvic floor. And it made a huge difference for me. All I wear is wide toe box shoes now, and my feet are stronger, my pelvic floor is stronger and working, and no more leaks.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like I was not an ab gripper or or a glute gripper, but I had the stand up straight sort of thing. And the alignment of the bottom of my rib cage to the front of my pelvis was so off that the pressure just could not be managed. My lower back was not weak. It was actually really tight. And because of the way that I was standing, and I realized over time when I started to learn about the breath work and the position of the rib cage relative to the pelvis. So you were talking about like abs gripped, glutes clenched is the opposite of what I was doing. I was going the other way, but like either way, too far in one direction or the other with those habits and the way you stand can really impact your ability to breathe. And when you're impacting your ability to breathe, you're impacting your core's ability to stabilize your spine. You're impacting your pelvic floor tension. It's a cascade. And like for me, tapping into that postural adjustment of pulling my front ribs back just a smidge, not sucking, not going the other way and gripping my abs and tucking my tail and gripping my glutes. Cause I see a lot of polarity around posture and these things where it's like, don't do this, but don't do this. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? It's like probably somewhere in the middle.
In the middle.
Right? And so just finding something a little bit more neutral that allowed the system to be aligned in a way that I could use my breath more effectively. And it was a total game changer. And then I was able to take that and translate it into barbell is on my back. How do you actually brace your core when there is a heavy barbell on your back? And the way that you're taught to breathe when dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction is actually what you're supposed to be doing when you're bracing. But to your point, when they say put the barbell on your back, now engage your core or grip your abs or suck it in or whatever the case may be, I was being cued of the opposite of what I should have been, which is pushing out, expanding out in all direction, and then bracing around that expansion. So you're creating the pressure. But the biggest piece there was like pelvic floor needed to lengthen and descend. If I was gripping down there because I was afraid I was going to pee myself, then I was actually making the pressure harder to manage and there was leaks. Yep. So, I mean, the breath piece, I can attest. I will from the mountaintops say that in and of itself can be a complete game changer when you just learn how to breathe with your core more effectively and manage that intra-abdominal pressure better.
I know. And it's like, people are like, seriously, I breathe all day long. But there's so many habits that change the way that we breathe, patterns that we have. And I'm like, I know it's boring. I know it's not the fun stuff. But if you just take 2 or 3 minutes to focus on this, like you said, game changer.
Yeah. I give it to my clients all the time where I'm like, here is me teaching breathing. And they're like, yeah, no. I promise. I promise.
Right.
It's 5 minutes. Your body even gets sweaty. It's great. It takes a while, but people eventually come around, especially
do.
if they've tried everything else under the sun. And they're like,
Yep.
all right, fine, I'll try your breath work. But it really isn't hard. All right, so let's talk about some of the takeaways. So I know that we're going to talk about the resources you have to offer. You have so many resources to help women anywhere in the world, which I think is amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about just some quick takeaways or simple things that can fit into people's daily routine that make a massive difference. So we talked about breathing, learning how to breathe in a way that is more functional, that allows for lengthening and expansion. That's all one part of it. We've talked about shoes. The shoes that you wear can have a big impact. What else would you tell people?
We already mentioned it, but just noticing things that you're doing through the day. Are you sucking in your abs? Do you grip your glutes? Are you clenching your jaw? Do you wake up in the morning and your jaw is super tense? So these are little things that we can address that most of the time it's like lifestyle changes that I work with clients. Breathing, posture, lifestyle, and then we'll throw in 2 or 3 exercises. Sure, if you want to do more exercises, great. But like you just don't have time. You're like, I don't have an hour to spend on my pelvic floor. Like, yeah. See how to weave it in throughout the day. Looking at hip mobility, but also strengthening in a rotational component. One of our deep hip rotator muscles, the obturator internus, attaches into our pelvic floor muscle. So this is a big one that I see people haven't been doing. They've got the traditional clamshell. I went to PT and I got my clamshell leg lifting. But doing the opposite direction of that in various positions can be really helpful. So I love working on the hips. I love spending some time on the mid trunk, like just some chest openers, like back extension exercises are really good because it's great for our breath, which is going to let our diaphragm descend and help with pressure management. And just getting some of that stiffness and tension out because the connection between our spine and our pelvic floor. So those are some of the big body part areas. I like 1 or 2 exercises from each of those. And then we did talk about the feet, like what you wear on your feet can be really helpful. Or say you get the urge, say you're someone that's like, I have got to run to the bathroom 20 times throughout the day. If you're sitting at your desk, I love taking a little ball, like a small golf ball size, and just roll the bottom of your feet, like relaxing those muscles can be helpful. Oh,
Wearing a toe spreader at work?
Love them. Love the toe spacers. They're so helpful.
Yes.
Hydration is a huge one. And it seems counterintuitive because you're like, I leak. I'm constantly running to the bathroom. Why do I have to stay hydrated? But I see women that like cut down their water intake, but that actually irritates your bladder even more. And also gradually increasing. So not going from I'm barely drinking to drinking a ton because your bladder definitely isn't going to take that load. You want to slowly work your way up over a couple of weeks, but getting to the point where you're nice and hydrated. I kind of love staying around the marker of half your body weight in ounces per water. But that's another big one that I see people are like, oh, I don't want to drink water.
Interesting, because your bladder might not have been the problem, right? Like it could have been that there's some other pressurizing happening within the core and pelvic floor. So you just take it out in your bladder and the rest of your body by not drinking enough water. But I can see the logic in that thought process. But it also, as you said, it irritates another part of your body. So now you're adding an additional issue in there. Interesting. So this is fascinating. I always love to talk to you about this because you teach me something I didn't know before. And I think being able to have these conversations and taking that taboo label off, like I said, the TMI disclaimer that I get as a coach. And I'm like, whatever it is you're about to tell me is something that I should be equipped. As a coach of women's health and fitness, I should be equipped. And then I would encourage everybody who's listening who has a coach in health and fitness to go ahead and ask them these questions, because that is what led me as a coach to exploring more, because it wasn't just me. And then just, again, making sure that you've got a good team around you. What other takeaways or anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap?
Just keep pushing. You know your body best. And even if you've been told by multiple people or doctors or your friends have similar issues, it's not normal to pee or it's common, but it's not normal. You shouldn't have to be tied to a bathroom. You shouldn't deal with hip pain or back pain forever. There's always some answer. So keep digging for those answers.
Great. So Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show and again, sharing your wisdom with all of us. So obviously people can find you on your YouTube channel, Instagram, We'll link to those and your website in the show notes just to make it easier for our listeners to find you. And then you have a free Empower Your Core Masterclass. Can you tell me a little bit about that? We'll link to it in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So this is a great setting the foundations of like, I'm not quite sure how to manage my pressure. What's this about breathing that you're talking? So I'll go through and teach you how you're managing your pressure while you're doing the exercises and what you might want to avoid and how you might want to change that. And the breathing there, I give a couple of exercises in there as well. So it's a great resource of just getting started. What should I do? We look at the hips, we look at how the spine's connected, and it just starts taking like a much bigger picture look in that. So Empower Your Core Masterclass, free for you guys.
That's awesome. So if you're listening to this and you're like, maybe this is something for me, then I definitely recommend that you check out the Empower Your Core Masterclass that we'll link. And then you have some really exciting news. You are launching your Defy app. So you've been teasing this and I'm so excited for you. So I can't wait to hear about it.
We are so excited, like just from all working with women over the past couple of years and seeing the same things over and over again. I wanted one spot for them to be able to come, and you can search through the app, whether you're having back pain, you go to the back pain section. If you have hip pain, if you have a tight pelvic floor, if you have an overactive bladder, there's sections for everything. We're building a community in there so you can ask questions. We're having challenges. So we're just super excited to be able to have more resources to put out there. And for being a listener, we're going to give you guys 20% off of that.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love to watch how passionate you are about educating women and empowering women. You're so generous with your information and the knowledge that you provide. And I really hope that our listeners do take you up on that Defy app and on the Empower Your Core Masterclass, because you have such a way of explaining things that don't make people feel silly or stupid. And you're so good at your job and you're so passionate about it. Thank you so much for being on the show and for answering all these questions and sharing your resources with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. But don't worry, we're dropping new episodes every Thursday. In the meantime, head over to the show notes for all the links from today's episode, or go to fitbottomedgirls.com/podcast to catch up on past episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.